officially get started as people continue to join. Welcome. My name is Christy Omelanik, and I go by she, her pronouns. I am the Network Engagement Manager here at the Children in Nature Network. I'm so glad you are all here. Welcome to our Learn to Nature Journal event with Muir Laws. This is part of our Families Together in Nature series. This initiative provides both inspiration and practical tips for getting more outdoor activities onto the family calendar and more of nature's benefits into the lives of children. I am joining you today from the land of the Munsee Lenape people in central New Jersey. We invite you to share the native land you are on in the chat and recognize the joy, healing, and genocide that Indigenous peoples have endured who are still here and still thriving since colonization. If you are not familiar with the history of your location, you can learn about Indigenous territories and lands with the Native Land Map. Laura is adding that link in the chat so you can check out that site. On this slide, you'll also see some ways to go beyond a land acknowledgement and support Indigenous people every day. You can learn about the Indigenous homelands that you're on, educate yourself about Indigenous issues, amplify Indigenous social media accounts, and amplify Indigenous voices year-round, and support Indigenous causes and businesses. Before I introduce our renowned guests, bear with me as I go over some event logistics. Closed captioning has been enabled. Please use the Q&A function on the Zoom to add questions. Questions will be answered by Jack at the end of the event. The chat is going to be open for a few more minutes, but we are going to close it once the event gets underway so that we can all focus and enjoy the workshop. But just a reminder, the event is being recorded. So in approximately 2 weeks, you'll receive it in your inbox along with all of the links and resources from the chat. So if you missed something, no worries. So now it is my great pleasure to welcome and introduce our esteemed guest, Muir Laws, aka Jack, who is the president, co-founder, and creative director of the Wild Wonder Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to encouraging nature connection and conservation through attention, curiosity, art, science, and community. Jack is a principal leader and innovator of the worldwide nature journaling movement. He has dedicated 4 decades of his life to connecting people to nature through art and science. From an early age, his parents instilled in him a deep love and respect for nature. Over the years, that love has grown to a commitment to stewardship, nature conservation, and a passion to share the delight of exploring nature with others. As an award-winning writer, author, scientist, and artist, Jack has developed numerous interdisciplinary educational programs and resources that train students to observe with rigor and to refine techniques to become intentionally curious. He is the author and illustrator of several books, including The Laws Guide to Nature Drawing and Journaling, and more, all available in the Muir Laws store. Jack, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Christy, I am absolutely delighted to be with you, and it's really fun for me to get to do a program with the Children in Nature Network. For years, I have really carefully followed and learned so much from the resources that this organization puts out and been inspired by it. A lot of my own personal work has formed around kind of looking over at what Richard Louv and the network are up to. This work that we're doing together is so important and so joyful. The world really needs this right now. This is a great time to make our connection with nature, and I'm just delighted to be here with you. So thank you very much. Today, what I want to do is to do a deep dive and look at how you can use nature journaling with your own family or class if you're a teacher, to forge a deeper relationship with the natural world. And I have spent my entire life working as a naturalist and as an educator. In that time, I have not found any tool that is more powerful at helping us forge that connection and get so much more out of being in nature than this journal. And so I'm going to make a hard sell. And I hope that by the end of this, that you'll be inspired, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And oh my goodness, this is really, really, really fun to do. And look, here's some resources and things. There's a path that I can follow to kind of learn more and kind of connect with others in doing this. You can absolutely do this, and you can absolutely make this a part of your world. So let's go there now. Um, when we were in the green room, um, we were kind of going over the slides and making a few edits and things. And right before we went on, somebody pointed out, did you know that you spelled journal wrong? And isn't that cool? So this is and I decided, hey, let's leave it because I'm dyslexic and this is just part of my world. So welcome to my world. You can spell journal wrong and you can have journal wrong spelled in your presentation. It's going to be okay. And this actually ties into some themes and ideas which we're going to be looking at in this little workshop together. So let's start by looking at uh, hold on. Do I have a delay? So, folks at
No.
you're not seeing a delay?
Oh yeah, a little like 2 seconds.
All right. So I will have to. I hope that if that gets obnoxious, we can go back to this view. But if you don't mind, a little bit of bending of the time-space continuum. Um, here we go. So let's sort of first of all let's define our terms here. What is nature journaling? What is this? What is this nature journaling thing? So there's two ingredients. There's nature and there's journaling. So nature, I think we can all agree, at least if you signed up for this course, we're down with the nature thing. Nature is this, it is this incredibly beautifully intricate, mysterious, delightful, inspiring world around us. And the more that we can lean into that, the more that we can really celebrate that world, it makes us happier people. It makes us better parts of our community. Our stress levels go down, and our joy goes up. So nature's a really good idea. And as a scientist, I find it really inspiring because for me, nature is it's this infinite source of complexity. And of all the things that we could know about the natural world, we understand only the tiniest little slice of what's going on in the world. But a fun thing is that the we understand only this much, but the amount that is possible is infinite. You can look at any phenomenon around you and something that you think you know. You're going to discover that what we have this really superficial idea of sort of feeling of, yeah, I understand poppies, I know what's going on there, but we just scratch beneath the surface a little bit. Oh, and the mystery is right there. So nature is infinitely fascinating, and if you're a curious person, it's a great place to geek out. And so let's take that nature piece and let's combine it with journaling. What's the deal with this? So the idea with journaling is that my own brain can only hold a limited amount of information at any one time. And if I want to sort of probe the depths and the complexities of this world, I need to get past the limitations of the electric meat that is between my ears. They can only dance with about 7 different ideas at a time, plus or minus two. So what I do is I'm experiencing something, I'm getting it out of my head and I'm getting it into a journal. So, ooh, there's that. I'm gonna grab, ooh, that, I'm gonna grab that, ooh, there. And so I put all these things that are floating around in my observational scene, and I get them onto the paper, and this allows me to deal with a level of complexity and beauty in this world that otherwise I would not be able to do. Um, so the journaling is a process. It is going to force me to observe much more deeply. Actually, the delay is starting to bug me, so I'm going to bounce over to here. Ha! Now, no delay. So here's the world around me is actually when I did that, I forgot my train of thought. Oh yes, process. Let's go there. Um, Journaling is not about the journal. Journaling is about paying attention to this world. The journal is a tool to help us pay more deeply focused attention to everything that's going around us. And it also helps us remember that. If I focus on the journal and I'm worried about making a journal that's good, I'm missing the point. The point is nature. The point is you and the connection of you with nature. It's not about the journal. The journal is a tool in service of your attention that builds the bridge, a connection to the natural world. This journal is the bridge. The destination is our connection with the natural world. So what I um, what I find is that by using the journal, I am able to attend so much more deeply to the natural world around me. When I do that, I see levels of wonder and levels of beauty that otherwise I would have completely missed. That's the goal of it. The goal is to connect us more deeply with the world. Um, it's about attention, and therefore it is about love. So when I when I say love, what I mean is I actually have a very specific definition. For me, love is a verb. It's something that we do. It is the act of attention. Think of how your attention builds a relationship with your family. When you're able to put something aside and be present and together, if you're reading that book together and you are both focused on that together, that shared connection connects you. When you put the project down and you deeply listen, that connects you. So that act of attention builds the relationship, builds the connection. And so too with the natural world. When we pay deep attention, what's going on is we are falling in love with the world. So nature journaling is a tool for love. This is the same love that then motivates us to then turn around and be stewards. It motivates us to cherish and protect the world that is around us. And how do we get ourselves to care? It's it's through an act of attention. So by nature journaling, I'm not only connecting myself with the world, I'm not only am I falling more deeply in love with this world, I'm building deeper connections and a relationship with this world. And then that motivates me to step forward and say, hey, we're doing this together, nature. And I got your back the same way you got my back. When I am suffering depression, I'm going to go out among the trees and the forests, and I know that you've got my back. I'm going to bring my journal with me, and a few pages later, that depression lifts, and I'm there, and so art thou, right? And And in the same way, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to protect those trees and those forests that give me so much and give our society, give our community so much. There's a relationship there, and it's built through attention. And the journal is our tool for attention. So, what I wanted to do is just show you um, a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So this is one of my nature journals, and what I have done here is I'm going out, and here I've taken a little chunk of a map and I glued it in there, and I'm pointing out sort of where I'm making different little nature discoveries. But what my process is, the process here is actually very deliberate and kind of fun. What I'm doing is I'm starting off making observations. So if I notice something like what is the posture of the little titmouse as it is kind of whap 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 whapping on a little branch. Um, I observe that and I record it in my book. So it starts with observations. What is it that I notice? So if I'm looking, here's a log, and this log has been saw. This tree, this oak fell over. This log then blocked a path. Somebody came along and they sawed it off here, and then, um, but it was still rooted over here. And this is life size over here. So here are these little bumps that are coming out of the side of that log, and they're sprouting again. So, what I am doing then is is I'm starting with my observations, and then I've got this sort of an interesting process that I use for kind of going more deeply. Begin with those observations, and I'm putting those in my journal. And then what I have got two other systems that I use. One is I think to myself, when I'm looking at this, what does that remind me of? Can I connect? Um, remember when we're talking about connections. So you're going to hear this idea of connections. Here, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to connect this experience with with my heart, with my brain, my own experiences. So check this out. I'm going to use this prompt to go in an interesting direction. I say, what does this remind me of? And so here I wrote, IRMO, it reminds me of. And so I'm looking at, here's this tree, it's been cut down, these lumps, they're sprouting again. This new life kind of, it's rough. We had this whole tree thing established before, but now this little oak tree, it's going, it's not giving up. No, it's from these little bumps on the side. We've got more oak going up. And where did that take me? So this reminds me of my mother's, at this time, my mom was recovering from a stroke, and she had lost all of this function in her body, but she was fighting back from that and building these skills progressively again, things that she could always do her entire life. But now she's rebuilding those. So that's where this took me. This little oak tree reminded me of my mom and her perseverance. So immediately, this oak snag that is here, it now think of how that then connects with me and my heart. I have now built this deeper relationship with this sawed off little oak thing by the side of the road. So those are two parts of my system. And the third part I think of as the special sauce in nature journaling. And that is, can I activate my curiosity and wonder? So what I'm going to do with this third one, let's kind of go to a different page. Yeah, here I am. Um, I am by the side of a lake on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada, and there's this place with these strange vertical columns, right? And look over here. This is a little side view. There's me for scale. And I am looking through these and I realize I have no clue why these are formed. And so what I start doing is I start asking questions about what I see. And the questions, without even getting them answered, I will often find there's a question, then there's a question that is behind the question, there's a question. You can get these rich layers of questions. And so what I'm doing is finding questions all over with what I see. If I can make myself curious, if I can activate my own curiosity about what I'm seeing, then whatever I'm experiencing, I've got an extra kind of lean in. So I'm looking for things that make my brain go like, ooh, what's up with that? Now, to do this, we have to. we have to embrace humility. We have to get rid of this idea in our head that says, I need to be an expert in everything, because we can't, right? You want to be an expert in the natural world? Guess what? Nobody really gets it, right? We understand a few little pieces, right? And that's elegant, but we don't get it. And very quickly, you're going to bump into questions that have never even been asked before. You'll be the first person coming up with these questions. But how can we explore these? We can explore these things by our direct observations and making inferences about what we see. We can learn a ton of everything around us. But we just start with being humble in the presence of these mysteries and going like, oh my gosh, there's another thing that I don't know. How wonderful is that? And I'm going to try to collect as many mysteries. So observations, questions, connections. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. That's our naturalist mantra. Essentially what I'm doing is I am running around in the woods with this journal in my hand. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, and all those things go down onto the page. And that's what makes nature journaling nature journaling. And right, so how you go about this is really idiosyncratic. So that means that you do it your way, you do it your way, I'm going to do it my way, and it's all good. If you look at my nature journals, you'll think to yourself, like, oh, the way you're supposed to make nature journals is to draw a whole bunch of pictures, because I draw a lot of pictures in my journals. Do you remember the spelling mistake at the start of this show? Right. That spelling mistake, that um, is there because I'm dyslexic. And my dyslexia makes it more difficult for me to write. And so in elementary school, I got really afraid of writing anything because I was afraid that my spelling wouldn't be perfect. So, um, my journals ended up being mostly pictures. Um, for you, you're going to start and kind of grow from wherever you are. If writing is your comfort zone, your journal can be mostly writing. If drawing pictures is your comfort zone and your happy place, it can be mostly that. If you're a quantitative person, you love counting and measuring things, that can be the focus of your journal. It can be like all these data tables and things. This is going to be your own. And so that is from that starting place, we're going to grow out and we're going to build skills on this. Eventually, what you're going to have is this really comprehensive balloon of all of these skills in different areas. But start with wherever you are. Some people are very scientific in their approach. Others, it's a more personal experience, and there's room for both of these things in our journals. Some people's journals are really, really playful and goofy, and their sense of humor just rolls off the page. So, oh, yeah, bonus points if you ever put a title on a page and you can make a bad pun, a good pun, right? All puns are good puns. Um, other people take a very sort of more objective approach. That's good too. So all of that, we're still just we're making these observations, questions, connections. We're putting them down on paper. It's going to connect us with the world. So do it your way. But here's my advice. What you want to do is to try to push yourself just a little bit outside of your comfort zone to that area where you're going to be trying something that for me, I'm going to force myself to write, right? And even like, ooh, what if I spell something wrong? I have to go like it's Jack, it's going to be okay. You will spell things wrong, but it's not about the spelling, it's about ideas. Similarly, if I draw a picture and it's not a pretty picture, that's totally cool. It's not about the pretty pictures, it's about nature and me coming together. It's not about how the page looks. This isn't about my spelling. So if there are any other dyslexics out there, you have my permission to spell any way you want. I will spell the same word 7 different ways on the same page. See if you can beat me. All right. This can be done by yourself. You can do this with your family. You can do this in a group. More about groups later. We started these nature journal clubs all over the place. It's really, really fun. And similarly, you have the choice of whether you're going to emphasize your words, your pictures, or your numbers. Interestingly enough, each one of those is going to activate a different part of your brain. Sort of up here in this part, you've got part of your brain that really works a lot with language. Back here, You've got a visual cortex that is helping you kind of get in there with images and pictures and maps and that visual stuff. And when we put people in those fMRI machines that scans their brains when they're alive, we find that there's a little area above our ears that lights up when we're working with numbers. So what I like to think of is I'm going to intentionally try to throw all of those into my page. For me, my entry is to draw a picture. And then what I'm going to do is then say like, okay, take a deep breath. Don't worry about the spelling. Let's use some words. And then I find that when I'm engaging with the same phenomenon using my words, I'll notice all sorts of other things. And then similarly, if I start counting or measuring things, all sorts of other observations will come out and dance with me. So I'm giving my brain sort of a bigger trampoline to engage with all these sorts of things. So let's take a look at how just kind of thinking about words, pictures, and numbers. Um, I'm going to just flip open into this journal here. Look, questions. Um, so there's pictures. There's pictures. I'm then labeling things. Other places I'm sort of writing, bullet points or observations on the sides. And then a question comes to me. Oh, it reminds me of um, underwatered vegetables. So I'm a terrible gardener. So this drooping dogwood remind me a handkerchief, orchid flowers wilting. I've got my notice. I wonder it reminds me of. Let's take a look at the numbers on this. I'm wondering, are these leaves of the dogwood trees, are they more droopy as you get further away from the creek? And so what I did is I made this little graph over here as I go 10, 20, 30 steps away from the creek. Are they perky, medium, or droopy? Right. And so I had those three categories, and it just with every kind of dogwood that I would take a look at, I would kind of average what their leaves were doing and put it on that graph. And I found that there's no real clear pattern. At first, I thought that was what was going on because that was the first one that I looked at. I saw something that was really droopy and it was far away from the creek. And so I thought that must be the pattern. But then I kind of looked at a larger data set and I changed my mind. Huh. So each one of those can take me in a different direction. Um, let's now uh, kind of let's think about our logistics of how we're going to do this. So you want to go out in the field, you want to do this. Let's put a kit together, and then we're going to head out and we're going to do this. So um, the first thing we're going to need. The first thing we're going to need is some form of a journal. And what I recommend you do is you get yourself a hardbound journal that's going to be large enough for you to kind of bring the largest one that you realistically bring with you in the field. Maybe it's a small one like this. The really bitty ones, you can't think on paper that small. It's going to constrain your thoughts. I now tend to do most of my stuff with a larger journal because it gives more room for my ideas to spread out. But if you're thinking, if I've got something that big, I really won't be bringing it with me, go smaller. So the largest journal that you can realistically bring with you. What about the tools? What kind of fancy stuff that we need? That's the Dixon Ticonderoga #2, right? You may recognize this from all sorts of tests at school, but this is an awesome journaling tool. They're everywhere, they're cheap, and they work, right? So if you've got these two things, you're ready to go nature journaling. You don't need a whole bunch of tools to be able to do this. If you want to kind of expand it more, another thing that I like, really expensive tool, really fancy. This is the Bic round stick. I love Bic round sticks, right? They don't smear. Um, the advantage of them, the disadvantage is that you can't erase them. The advantage of them is that you can't erase them, right? Because sometimes you just put something down with this and it's not quite right. But then you're thinking like, oh, it's in pen, just gonna move on to the next thing, no big deal. If it was in pencil, you might be in there kind of going, I'm gonna erase that. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna erase that. I'm gonna change it. No, I gotta get right, gotta right. And kind of we just get too fussy. This gets me to just move on. So these two things, I love them. And if you want to kind of take it a little bit further, you can kind of get yourself a little packet of colored pencils because color is fun. And with that, you're good to go. You're off to the races. As you go are on your nature journaling, your journey, your kit may change. That's totally fine. If when that happens, just you can add more things into it. Eventually, what you're going to want to do is get yourself some sort of a bag to carry things in. Um, that way, you can just always be ready to go. This sits at my door saying, "Go on an adventure with me," and I walk out the door and I just grab that bag, and then I'm out on my adventure. But this doesn't have to be a tool intensive thing. And then you might think about what do I want to journal about? How do I do that? Um, for this, what I really recommend you do is notice in yourself what you're drawn to. And you walk out, if you look at something and you kind of go like, huh, that's odd, right? That's awesome. That's a big deal. That little thing that goes like, ooh, that's weird, right? Lean into that. That's a great hook and journal about that. Because when you get that feeling, what that is your brain express that surprise is what happens when your brain detects something that you don't know and you don't understand. And um, it offers you that little feeling. So if I journal about that a little bit, I will come away with a better understanding of whatever that is. Um, Another thing that you can do is to just sort of notice where your energy is going. If you've been doing something for a while and your attention flows over there, then it's okay to sort of change your mind. Don't think like I'm supposed to stay with this for the next X period of time. You will find, though, as when there are these little rabbit holes, and you start going down a rabbit hole, you can find yourself then spending hours with the same phenomenon. When that happens, give yourself permission just to stick with it and do more. So follow your energy, kind of let your body do what it does. Now, what I'd like us to do is a little journaling experiment. What we're going to do is we're all going to journal together. And for some people who got the information, actually, there we go. Some people who got this information earlier, you will, um, you saw that we said get some sort of natural object and bring it with you. So you can use your own natural object and journal about that. Um, or I went out into my backyard right before this program started, and I looked around. I said, "I need a little phenomenon." I said, "Ooh, what about you?" And I found something cool. So if you want to also journal on the same object that I'm looking at, I'm going to be kind of taking you through my process of how I kind of look at something and what it looks like to do this. I wonder it reminds me of, and these words, pictures, and numbers, and get them down on the paper. Again, I've got a notice I wonder it reminds me of. I've got words, pictures, and numbers. And what I'm going to be doing is taking those two little triads, putting them together, and pushing that down on the page of my journal. You can do that with your object, or you can do that with mine. And what I've got, well, let me show you. All right, so, oh no, you're not a blank journal. You are. So got a blank journal page here. And what I did is I went out and I found some passion fruits. And oh, this is interesting. This has changed dramatically from when I came out. Hold on a second. Oh, we got it. So when at 10:30 Pacific time this morning, I went out and I was going to get some. I thought I'm going to get one of these passion fruit things, and I looked and they were all closed up. I thought, I can't find any that are open. And so I got one. Oh, just look at one that's closed up. Okay. But now this one that's on my desk is open. I want to see if, oh yeah. Oh yeah. So what time is it Pacific time right now? So in that time, all the passion fruits on the tree outside, it's now 1 hour later, all the passion fruits have opened up. So first cool observation of the day, these things just moved. I thought I was going to show you like these are some closed up passion fruit, and we were looking at those. But now, kaboom, we have opened passion fruit. So already I'm leaning in. So again, find what kind of makes you go like, ooh, I didn't expect that. And play with those things on your piece of paper. So here we go to, yeah, look at this thing. So this little one, this little one was all folded up and I couldn't see any of these structures here. Oh, look at that crazy thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I, now you first might be looking at this going, oh no, it's this super complex thing. How on earth would I ever go about doing that? So don't worry, we're going to break this complex thing down into some sort of simpler shapes, and I'll show you how I would play with that on my journal. Wow. You have changed so much. So, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start because, again, here's my dyslexia. If I were a writer, I would probably start with just writing some things about it. But I'm probably going to start off by making some sketches. But even before that, I'm just going to talk to the flower a little bit. I'm going to talk to the flower. So I'm going to say to the little flower, all right, I've got these three cool little things here. They're each two-parted. They're kind of heart-shaped on the tip. They have these little pads on them. See if I can zoom down, but I can't. That's okay. All right. I have one, two, three, four. These three things, they come down to a big glob. There are then five. I'm guessing those are anthers. The anthers are the parts of the plant that hold pollen, so I'm thinking that's what these are. Um, so this is reminding me of my little botany lessons, right? Where I have the stigma, the style, the pistils. So this is the pistil. These three things up here. These are the stamen around here. I bet that's the ovary down there. So I'm just talking to it. Oh, there seems to be, so there's these little things around here, kind of coming around in a cup. And I don't know what those are called botanically. So that's interesting. So what are these little structures? That's weird. And then there are these little folder back things on the back side here. I've got one, two, three, four, five green ones. I have one, two, three, four, five white ones. And it seems that the green ones are on top of the white ones. So I'm thinking these are sepals, petals. Then I don't know what these are. And I also don't know what they do. So other plants don't have these little things. What's their function? So what I'm doing, I'm just kind of making kind of connections. I'm asking questions. So this reminds me of everybody take a look at this, and I want everybody to let's open up the chat again. Open up the chat, and I'm going to ask everybody to drop in as many it reminds me of as you can about this. Right? So what does it remind you of? So just get them going. All right. Oh, look at that. A fountain. Ballerina. Whiskers. Another ballerina. Two ballerinas. It's a Ferris wheel. They're going to go to the, we've got a county fair in town here. Right? So notice how when you're doing this, it reminds me of stuff and making you think in a totally different way. An alien, a praying mantis. Reminds me of Seattle. Oh, check you out. See, look at the wonderful brains in this group. Reminds me of God. It reminds me of fireworks. It reminds me of, all right, so, and notice when you make those, it reminds me of, when you, and if there's something like this, you say, it reminds me of this, that is making a connection in your brain, in your heart. And it's either connecting with some sort of feeling sort of thing, or it's connecting with some sort of thing that you studied before or an experience that you had. And when you're doing that, you're now taking this new neural experiencing and tying it into stuff that has stuck onto some neural connections, little synapses in your brain. We're going to be extending those and building on them, right? Oh, yeah. All right. Isn't that beautiful? And then take a look at that list of it reminds me of that other people are making. Now, this part in here reminds me of little bathtub rings. All right. It reminds me of, what about this stuff? What does that remind me of? It reminds me of the little sink drain trap, right? It reminds me of, right, isn't that interesting? So this, if we're just getting our brain to kind of geek out and have some fun. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little diagram of this. So if I think to myself, I'm going to make a drawing, sometimes even the word drawing makes me get a little bit bunchy, right? But if I instead just say to myself, I'm going to make a diagram, um, that often is a little bit more forgiving. And it doesn't have to be a pretty picture. I want it to be a useful diagram that's going to hold some information for me. One way I will often start a drawing is lightly putting in, or a diagram, I will lightly put in uh, a um, a little sketch with a colored pencil, a light colored pencil. I'm actually going to be using this colored pencil lead inside this mechanical pencil. If I were doing this on my own, it would be a really light colored pencil that you wouldn't be able to see with the document camera here. But what I'm going to show you how I'm going to kind of make some diagrams of this. I'm going to start with this little bitty bit on top, right? And um, yeah, so that little, and I'm going to refocus. All right. So I'm going to start with this sort of strange little bit on top. And I'm going to draw it two ways. I'm going to draw it from the side and I'm going to draw a top view. So from the side, there's sort of a things that come down, and then there's that one in the back, and they've got kind of wider parts on them. So I'm making these sort of little um, light colored, light value diagrams that kind of no real detail, and they come in on the bottom, and then there's a little ball. So notice how this is actually to make this easier for us, I'm going to grab a little clamp off my shelf here. So I'm walking across the room. And I am going to, I've got a little hardware store alligator clip here. And if I put this into the clip, it'll hold it in one position so you won't see, I won't be constantly changing your angle. So my hand moves around. That'll be easier for everybody. All right. So I have, let's see if we can refocus on this level. Yep. All right. So I've got this little drawing. Now I'm going to reach for, where did I put my little Bic pen? Bic pen. There you are. There you are. All right. So I have on the sides, I'm going to turn this a slightly different angle so we can see the side view of those little guys. Yeah, there are these little things that are sort of heart-shaped on the sides. And then there is this one here actually kind of has an extra little bump over here. And now it's going to be a little bit easier for me to see around this because I actually have the three-dimensional thing in here. So it'll be harder for you than it will be for me. And And then there's this little piece comes down, it comes over here, swoops down and in, and it's thicker at the top. And then this is doing the same sort of a thing. And there's one in the back. Sort of, I see it from a different angle. And from the back, how does that one in the back look? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So this thing is kind of going up into two parts. There's a little noof over here, there's a little noof over here, and then there's a little uh, around that. So I always want to check back in with the real object to see what it's doing. And then all of those things attach to this little ball here. And I'm going to put a few little kind of curvy lines around the side of this just to sort of suggest that it's kind of more rounded. And so there, me being a start with a picture kind of guy, I am starting with a picture. So this is slightly bumpy. And this part here is smooth. These parts here are darker green, and I could either just show that with my ballpoint pen, but the reason I like ballpoint pens is that if I just go lightly with it, I get a light line, just like a pencil. And then, what do these remind me of? What do these remind me of? Huh. I'm gonna give myself an it reminds me of a comma. Um, it reminds me of what is it? What I'm gonna just here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna encourage you folks to hit that chat up again. What does that do? Those little structures. Oh my gosh, I'm now looking at the comments of the other parts are reminding me. Um, uh, so peas, popcorn, trumpet, tuba. Oh my gosh, it's a cat nose. Oh, I have to hide. Oh, look at that. All right, yes, look at the little cat nose. Oh my goodness, there's a little cat nose. Oh, I can't unsee that. All right. It reminds me of some sort of musical instrument, right? And you could write cat nose too, but there's visual me. I'm kind of draw a little doodle. Um, that's okay. Um, reminds me of a coral reef. Coral. Oh, all right. So it's really fun to kind of play with your brain in that way. Um, and let's geek out with it from a different view, right? So I'm going to turn this like that. Okay. Look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little circle, and then I'm going to draw three lines coming out of that, sort of a little Mercedes-Benz or a peace sign right through the middle of that. And that is going to be, um, and those are going to come out. Now, because it's repeating this shape, the same angle, if you don't want to draw all three of them, you don't have to. I'll show you a little kind of time-saving trick. Now, if you want to, you can. All right. So it's thicker, and then it kind of has a kind of an inflection point where it turns in, doesn't it? And out and here. And then there's a little line that comes up the middle. And there's a little hat bit over here, the little cat nose, top of the cat nose. And that then is coming down and it's meeting these other ones here and another one here. But because it is symmetrical, I can, if I want to, I can draw those other ones in, or if I want to, I can just draw, here's this other thing down below. And I've got a lot of the same information. Now, if I've got color, um, color is fun. I don't have a big set of colored pencils here. This is a rather small set of colored pencils. So there's a color of green here. Here's another green. And I guarantee you that the color of green that these are is not one of my colors. And I'll show you what I'm going to do to get around that. Just a little color test off on the side here. Yeah, like, yeah, that's not it. What about you? Yeah, that's rather similar. Still not it. Those are more of a yellow green. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first come along with my yellow pencil, not pressing hard, put a light layer of yellow down. The trick here is not to press hard because the minute I press hard, it'll be hard to put other pencil on top of that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this other pencil on top of that, and those two will blend together as long as I'm putting in a light coat. And now I've got a little light yellowy green. The secret is just not to go kerplunk and hit it really hard off the bat. What's the color of those little cat nose things? All right, so they're a little bit more, maybe I can just kind of get away. Yeah, I'll just hit it with one layer of this. Hmm. And then this little ball down the bottom is also yellow green. So I hit it with that yellow, light coat, hit it with the green, yellow green. Sometimes it takes practice going lightly with your hand. All right. Um, so and now let's ask it some questions. Um, so as you're looking at this top little bit, what questions can I come up with about this little structure? Oh, here I noticed something. These are mine are kind of asymmetrical. The real things were a little bit more symmetrical. So I'm just write should be symmetrical. Should be. I probably spelled symmetrical wrong, but you know what? I'm okay with that. It's not about spelling. It's not about pictures. So my picture wasn't right, so I corrected it with some words that are also misspelled. It's about noticing things and getting those things down onto a piece of paper. Oh, flower in a pot. I just have to now put three little balls on stalks, put them in a flower pot. Hmm. I love it. Reminds me of it. Just makes you. It is training your brain to think laterally. That's such a useful thing. Um, But let's ask this some questions. Let's ask this little top doohickey on this thing a few questions. Um, as you were looking at this structure, what do you wonder? What do you wonder? Let's drop those into the chat. Can we come up with any questions? I wonder if it is sticky. What do the little black dots do? How fragile is it? Does it attract insects? Where does it grow? All right. See, this is now we're on it. We're on a curiosity roll. Um, the so um, somebody was asking, are these things sticky? I want to see if these things are sticky. These ones, I'm not feeling any stickiness. Um, all right, does not feel sticky.
Jack,
Uh, yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but if you could just move your notebook over a little bit to the left.
Oh, good idea.
And also, it's about the top of the hour if we want to take a quick break.
Excellent. Um, so here's what I suggest we do. So you see the way this is going. What I'm doing is I'm trying to just I start with observation. I find it's really easy to start with I notice, and I get that from out there on my piece of paper. There's this whole crazy structure, right? And I'm just gonna take a little piece of it, kind of go like, I'm gonna look at this little top part. And then if I want to later on, if I feel my attention kind of going on from the little top part, if I might geek out all day with the little top part or not. So um so then what I'm going to do is I'm using a notice I wonder it reminds me of just to kind of geek out there and see what happens. If something really starts attracting my attention, I'm going to follow that rabbit hole. Otherwise, I'll just sort of bounce over to the next structure and kind of diagram that. Use I notice I wonder it reminds me of. At some point, I get hooked by curiosity, and my brain just goes like, "Oh, let's stay here and play." Right? And then I do. So you're going to follow your own energy, right? Sitting still is like sitting's the new smoking, right? So on a regular basis, it's good to get ourselves up and stretch. We're going to take just a few minutes here, take a bio break. If you want to get yourself a snack, get yourself a snack. Um, Want to use the restroom, you can. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back under the camera. You can put a few more things there, but I really recommend that we get up and we stretch and kind of move around. We're going to have at least, how many minutes do you think we should take?
Three.
3 minutes. Ready? Go. Oh, I still can't touch my toes. Years ago, I could. Oh, somebody's curious about the little specimen holder. This is you can get these at hardware stores. They're called alligator clips, or an alligator clamp, and it's just a sort of a heavy base, and it's got a couple of hands on it. It's got another little attachment that, if I want, I can bring in a little. There's a magnifying glass that you can put on it, um, but they allow you to hold something still, and so there. That's a really kind of fun little useful gizmo. Oh. I wonder how it smells. I think I may be getting a sweet smell. It's not very strong. Um, I'm gonna write faint, sweet smell. So, why this, why such? So I think that these things are that what botanists would call the pistil. That's the part of the plant that reminds me of the parts of the plant that get the pollen and then bring it down to the ovary. So I think this is probably an ovary down here. Kind of using my knowledge of botany. It could be wrong because, but I know how we can check. We'll check in a minute.
Okay, my break timer is going off if you would like to resume.
Excellent. I've just I've been having so much fun looking at the questions that people came up with. Um, the um, and it is uh, getting those questions um, out of our heads and onto the page is such a useful thing. One thing I did, so I'm thinking that these three parts here are the part of the flower that is supposed to catch pollen. Somebody was asking if it feels sticky. Very often, these pads are sticky on the female part of the flower, on the pistil. These ones aren't. So will it get sticky later, or did I miss it? Did I miss sticky stage? So yeah. See what I'm doing is I've got a question, and then here's a possible answer with a question mark, and then but then here's an alternate possible answer, right? So it's not sticky. Is it going to turn sticky later? Did I miss the sticky stage? Right. So this is thinking on paper. I'm just getting all my thinking out of my little brain, out of my little electric meat, and putting it down on this page. The more that I do that, the more interesting this becomes. May I take a moment and blow your minds? You ready? Look at this. Whoa. I know, right? Isn't that fun? So that was out there on that plant too. Let's geek out with this. So what are we thinking about now? Um, Hold on, I'm going to turn the angle of this so we can see a little bit more of the other surface. Okay. Isn't that wild? So I've got actually a few intermediary stages. I've got this one. So we can see that those three are staying on. That little oval part is getting bigger and more dotty. So what do you notice just as I hold these three up here? What do you notice? If you're with other people, say it out loud to each other. What do you observe here? What's going on? What's happening? Feel free to drop some of those thoughts in the chat if you want. What is surprising you? What is different than the way you would expect it to be? Reminds me of an egg. Wow. Still has the cat nose. Oh, I love the cat nose. I really do. That makes me very happy. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, and I've got this next little phenomenon in front of me. And hold on a second. Let's get this at a interesting angle. And let's just record some observations about this. Um, I'm wanting to see what's happening down here. Oh, look at this. Look at this craziness. All those other little bits, they're still down in here. But there's a little, they're up on a little tower. Whoa, 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 whoa. This is cool. This is cool. So I am now going to, this actually needs some scale here. Watch this. Here's the real one and the ovary one, two. So this is, if I'm looking at this little part down here, which I think may be the ovary, the part that makes the seeds.
Jack, can you move that
Oh,
flap down a
oh,
little?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It takes a village to keep me on the page. Um, so here's, I have drawn this about 2.5 times larger than the real thing. So if I just take this little ovary here, and I say we've got about one ovary length, two ovary length, and about a half here, and then one of these little comma things, one would really be about this long, two would be here, then a little bit more. So this is 2.5 times bigger than life. Um, so that way I can get just a little bit of scale in there. Um, I'm going to down, you up, and you up. I want to just make a new little drawing of this thing that I'm seeing. So lightly kind of putting in a ball of, it's got things here, it's got little cat nose things coming out here, a little bit more twisty and gnarly. And then there's something that is happening that's hard for me to see on the underside of it. So a little bit later, I might want to dissect this, but for now, I'm just sort of following what is happening with this upper part. I find it so much easier for me to kind of first kind of ball in the general shape I want with another pencil, and then come over that with my ballpoint pen. So these guys are, I will sometimes sort of do what I call show and tell in my journal. If I notice something, um, these are withering. I show them withering and then I just write in withering next to it. Um, this part is shiny. It is firm. I wonder how long it takes to get from one stage to the next. Um, how long does it take for the fruit to, sure. Hmm. And then I might as well put this one in too. Let me, I'm going to move this up so you can still, if you're playing with that. And there's this little thing here. So I really sort of feel my brain is now being pulled towards, how do these fruit develop? There's a whole other kind of train of thought that I'm not following here. Um, and that is what is happening with all these other parts. I'm really focusing on that first little nugget on the top. Um, but I'm really not giving proper credit to the all those other little features that are on the bottom there. Um, and their life is short. Um, and we don't have time to follow all the questions that we are going to get in our life. Um, but wherever you go, there you are. It is it's fun to see what happens. So this, and I'm putting pen lines on top of a place where I've already blocked out my basic shape with my little pencil. Now I've got these super withery little, these guys are just, oh, I'm falling apart. Ah, ah. And there's little white dots on the surface of this. All right, white dots. Now, I could draw white dots over the entire thing, but then I'd be drawing white dots for the rest of my natural life. And instead, I'm going to just write, yeah, there's white dots over whole thing, over whole thing. This time, I think I will put in some more information about some of these other parts. So I know that plants have petals and sepals. I'm guessing that these green ones on the outside are sepals, and that these were the sepals, and then between those were petals, and those petals seem to be just they have withered and gone the way of the dodo. Mm. And then there's what is this little thing that's sticking out here? Oh, it's petal. Look at that. Little thing here. That's what's left of a petal. It's a withered petal. Oh, you're so cute. You're just, things, we only draw flowers when they're in this state, right? But there's so much other interesting stuff that happens. All right, so let's kind of go. Oh, and look at what you have on your sepal. There is on that one there, on this green sepal, it has this little spike thing. This little spike thing here. Let's see if yeah. Right here I see it too. I had just been focusing on this and I'd missed that there are these little spikes on the end of the sepals. These little kind of cat's claw thing. To cat's claw to go with the nose, with the cat's nose. So you have a little cat's claw. What's the function of that? Now, not everything, interestingly, that you see will actually have a function. Sometimes, if something got some genes that code for some features, they might code for how much chlorophyll you're putting in some part of the leaves, but they would also code for something like making a little cat's claw. Um, so sometimes there is a function for structures that we see, and sometimes there isn't. Then there's the whole structure of this lower part. I haven't been able to get into yet. Are these things that are on the bottom of it here. Are those leaves? Are those bracts? Botanists have terms for just about every little part. Does a bract? It's been too long since my last botany class. And I'm going to write here. Sometimes when I'm drawing a little label line, this is kind of a cool little trick for a label line. I'm going to put a little dot on this withered petal, and I'm going to make a squiggly line out to here. And that little squiggly line is easier for our brains just to overlook and miss than the hard ones. So yeah, we've got this thing growing up. All those other little parts are still in there. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Um, this is this is beautiful. Um, and here's another thing I'm kind of curious about. Um, I have this one here. This was all closed up this morning. This was all these things. You couldn't see any of this little petals and whatever those little strings are this morning. I'm wondering what this little ovary, what I'm calling the ovary or fruit. Um, so if I am sure that it's an ovary, then I'll call it uh, an ovary. But if I'm not sure, then I'm going to just sort of keep it humble. This thing that I'm calling the ovary, this could I be an ovary? Like, is it smaller in this than in that one that's open? So has it already started growing more in this one? So decide for yourself. Do you think that that little structure will be smaller in here or same size in here? So does it grow up to this size and then once it gets pollinated, it starts growing, growing, growing? Or wah, wah, is it um is it getting bigger all the time? So it would be smaller in here. Let's decide for yourself and you're with somebody else, tell them what you think it's going to be. And because we're going to open in here, I'm going to find out. You ready? The
Move
big
it,
reveal?
move it up a little.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, there we go.
Here we are. Here we are. Oh, let me do this. Nice to have a little kitchen knife around. Slit this little petal up the side. And here we go. Oh, look inside. Whoa, you're chaos. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. So here is, it seems to be, it's the same size. It's the same size here. I was expecting it to be smaller. I was expecting it to be smaller. So that's neat. So there's this. Let's. This might be kind of a fun opportunity to start looking at the whole structure of the pet of the pillar that the little thing is on. Because I mean, look at all this structure in here. We've got the crazy wires that I have no idea what they are. Then there seems to be this cup. So there's wires coming down here. There's a cup. So this is the cup. This thing is, oh, this is interesting. These little the five doodly boppers, right? These five here, these things. On the underside of this one, these are already opened up and there's pollen coming out. So there's pollen on the tip of my knife here. See that little pollen right there? So these things these are definitely the male part. This is the what's called the stamen, and there's two parts on the stamen. There's the filament, which holds it up, and then there's the anther, which makes the pollen. Those are the stamen. So that makes it more likely that these other parts sticking up on the top, those are the pistils, and they attach to the ovary. Um, So, maybe another little diagram is in order. You see, what this is just a big adventure in figuring stuff out and kind of going into this with maybe a little bit of understanding, then um, kind of realizing that, oh, it's a little bit more complex than that. Oh, what's going on there? And then I realized like, oh, I understand this part, but then I don't understand this part. So this has some parts that are going like, oh yeah, I think I know what's up there. And then there are other parts where my brain is going, I have absolutely no clue. So to draw some of the stuff on the inside, what I'm going to do is let's try it this way. Start with start with just lightly draw a vertical line, and that's going to be the central axis for a diagram, not a pretty picture, but a little diagram of how this thing is working. And I'm going to put our little ovary friend on the stick. There are going to be our three little friends on top of that. What I'm thinking are the pistils and ovary. Now, look at this. There are these five. The pistil, the ovary is sitting on top of this little framework here of these um, these anthers that are all connect together. And I'm wondering, are they in a sheath around this, or is this all solid tissue through here? Because what I'm seeing is from right underneath here, there are these other things coming out with the pistils and I mean with the anthers, the stamen sticking out right out here. This part down below is thicker. So is there, so this part here thicker coming down is, and then it comes into a thicker, it then goes out into a wider base. And then that sits on top of a cup. Or yeah, there's a little cup down on the bottom. Huh. A little stalk that comes down. So there's a cup that drops down here. So I'm wondering, is that like it reminds me of a moat. So is that to actually protect these flower structures from something coming in? Or is this a place for holding maybe nectar to make this more attractive? So I've got this little diagram going on here. I'm wondering the part that I have my pencil on right now. I'm wondering if we slit this open, is there going to be, and I have not done this experiment before, so I do not know the answer, but I'm wondering if is the ovary on top of its own stalk, and are the anthers in a sheath around the outside edge of that, or are they, um, or is it all fused together? So in just a moment, I'll be cutting that open and finding out. But in the meantime, I have a filament, the stamen that has two parts. There's the filament that goes out, and there is the anther. And I'm going to draw that anther in sort of side view. Now, let's see if there is, I'm going to get this to focus on, and then lock. There we go. All right. So now, here's my little friend, the ovary question mark. One way we can definitely figure out if it is the ovary is cat's nose. If we cut it open and we find little seeds in there, Then we can say for sure we're in ovary town here. Now I've got this part that comes down thicker, and it's going to go out onto a little pad. And look at this. There seems to be like a little lip in the moat. What's the function of that? Hmm. This is so much more complex than I thought when I started. And you notice that I'm really only focusing on one half of this because the other half is, it's I could fill those in, um, but why do it when there's new discoveries to be made? Now, these little wires on the side, they are they are all attaching in a row coming up here. Why are you purple? Is that a way of attracting pollinators with color?
Hi, Jack.
Hey there.
So sorry to interrupt you again, but I just wanted to let you know that it is
About 15 minutes out?
yes.
Excellent. Thank you
We'll
so
be
much for
wrapping up.
helping me keep on track.
Yeah,
So, yeah, folks, I've asked the moderators in the back room to let me know when I'm kind of got about 15 minutes when that way it kind of helps me be able to end roughly on time.
yeah,
So thank you for helping me kind of keep track of that.
no problem.
All right. Now, on this little surface here, there are purple spots. I'm going to go grab a purple colored pencil with one hand. Come on, purple pencil. Come on out. There we are. So there's purple spots on here and out on here. I really want to cut this part open. Shall we do that? Let's cut open this little stalk here and see if it would just be really fun the if there's some internal structure there. Come on. No, it looks like no, no, it's all fused on there. Let's do a cross section. Cut it off. Yeah, it's all fused in there. Okay. Um, I'm gonna add a few little moat notes here. This is the moat. Um, we have purple spots. With any observation like this, there's purple spots. I can just write Y. And I'm going to call these guys the whiskers. Whoops. These little dudes in here, these are going to call the whiskers. What are they? What are you? Huh. Look at that. What a bizarre little bit of business going on. And what's what's fun about this for me is that a little discovery like this, it's available everywhere. If I bring home a piece of vegetable from Costco, and I've never really looked at that one before, I'll be like, what's going on here? Um, yeah, I did that during the peak of the pandemic. I um, decided, what could I journal about? Like here, this was journaling about what happens should I get a mild case of COVID. But I also at the same time this is studying in exactly the same way this bean from Costco. And this is a lizard that Carolyn named Bav. Bav the lizard came into our backyard. We found this lizard in our backyard, so we geeked out on it. So this was the onion that sprouted in our pantry. And and so it became a phenomenon for investigation. And rather than just eat it, let's kind of, yeah, we started tracking that over time. And how is it changing? You can learn anything about anything anywhere. It's not where you look, it's how you look. So you don't need to go to a national park. You've got a refrigerator, you've got a garden. There's some mystery going on, even in the things that you think you know. There are things that you can discover by looking again and looking again. If we don't have a journal, what we tend to do is we go like, oh yeah, it's a passion fruit flower. Cool. Those are pretty. Huh, that's weird. But you start kind of getting into it this way. I'm going to put this down, and then you realize how much I don't know. And that's really fun. It's really fun and really beautiful. So if you're thinking like, I, I, I I wonder how I might follow up on this. And let's see. Here we go. I want to share some resources with you. Um, so we started a nonprofit organization. Um, Beth from the foundation has been really active, answering a lot of questions and in the chat. Um, it's called the Wild Wonder Foundation, and the purpose of this foundation is to help us all with nature journaling. So the um, at the Wild Wonder website, you'll find all sorts of crazy resources. So we have conferences where we bring in we bring in teachers from all over the world. You see that little calendar down there? That's what we call the community calendar. And it's got classes for you look there Saturday the 7th. There's how to keep a nature journal. That's this class. But look at all this other crazy stuff that's going on. Look at all this other stuff that's going on here. These are free or paid events all around the world. Some of them are live, some of them are in person. And if you are a nature journal educator or you want to get some resources, you can go there. But also at Wild Wonder, there are all sorts of other crazy things. So for anyone who is a teacher or a homeschool parent who is doing this, or a parent who wants to do this with your family, there's a whole suite of nature journaling activities that you can do with yourself or with your students or with your family. Um, and we also have an educator certification where if you want to find out our best techniques, are the things which we've learned about how to best teach nature journaling, we've got a whole fleet of nature journal educators who are sharing their best practices with you. But wait, there's more because we have little clubs popping up all over the earth where people are starting their own nature journal clubs. And you can find one near you. And if there isn't one near you, there's the directions on how to start your own club and connect it with this map. And we also have a mentor who can say, like, you're okay, you're new to this. Don't worry, I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to walk you through this. And Valerie will help you be able to start your own nature journal club. We've created an online community called Wonderland. Wonderland, imagine if there was something that had some of the features of Facebook, but there wasn't any hateful political stuff going on. And in addition to that, your behavior online wasn't being tracked in order to sell you things, but was just a clean, well-lighted place for people to share nature journaling inspiration or questions. That's Wonderland. And there are places where parents are kind of talking. There are places where educators are working together. There's places where people are sharing their artwork. It is like kind of when we kind of started out a long time ago, and Facebook was a place where you shared, pictures of your family with people who were family. It's now a different beast, but we can take some of that functionality and reinvent it as a part of a community that is safe for kids, safe for us as adults, safe for us as thinkers. That's all at wildwonder.org. In addition to that, if you go over to johnmuirlaws.com, that's my website, I have live free classes and also recordings of all the other classes. Every week, I'm doing a new online class on a different topic if you want to learn sort of techniques of how to do this. Um, we also have something called the Nature Journal Connection. The Nature Journal Connection is a series of, I think, was it 40 10 to 15-minute videos, so short little videos that build up nature journaling skills. How do you do kind of a plant dissection? How do you make a map? How do you make a cross section of something? How do you, well, do all these sorts of things? So it's a great way of working with colored pencils. They build systematically nature journaling skills. It's all free. Also on my website, you'll find a book that I wrote on Law's Guide to Nature Drawing and Journaling. It's all about tricks and tips for drawing. A bunch of those same tricks are also available for free, no paywall, in my blog. That book, How to Teach Nature Journaling, is available in two forms. You can buy the book. You also can download the entire thing at no cost for uh, um, on my website there. So you can get the entire book and be able to try a bunch of kid-tested um, activities that, again, build nature journaling skills. It ties in very nicely with the nature journal connection. So those two resources really communicate well with each other. There are there are lots of ways to get involved with this, both virtually, and what we find is that when we start doing this in real meat space, where we can be in together with other human beings, it is so much fun. Because when you're doing this together, let's say you're journaling, we're all looking at the same thing. Your journal is going to look one way, that person's going to look a different way. Everybody's checking out the same spiders, and then we get together and like, I was seeing it this way. And you can look around at other people's journal pages and get all these ideas like, oh, I see what you did there. That's different than the way that I was thinking. That's really fun. That's really useful. So we can take other people's ideas and tie that into our own thinking. So the next time we're out journaling, I'm going to use Beth's idea. Oh, Fiona was doing this thing with questions where she was kind of making these little branches out and making possible answers. Ooh, I think I'm going to take that idea, put it in my pocket, and the next time I'm out. So you can learn a lot by kind of cross training with other people's brains. There's a lot of resources out there. There's an active community. And again, this whole thing is not about this book. It's not about the journal. It's not about making pretty pictures. It's about nature and you. And how can we use our deliberate attention to establish a deeper connection with the world around us? An interesting sidecar, an artifact of this, if I'm making a lot of drawings, I get better at drawing. So in the process of doing this, like if you say to yourself, like, but I really wish I could draw, I've got really, really good news. You can. And the secret is just to start drawing on a regular basis. But the problem is when we're like, if I'm taking an art class and I'm trying to make all these pretty pictures, and I go like at the start, like I'm trying to draw this, and this doesn't look like that. And I'm going, I'm beating myself up. So with nature journaling, it's about nature. It's about paying attention. If I do some sketches on a drawing and I notice something about the passion fruit flower, or come away with a question that I've never asked before, and through my attention, I have established a deeper connection with the world around me. This is useful. And so instead of worrying about making a pretty picture, a good picture, I'm just making a useful picture. And I go like, yeah, this picture was useful. And that just prompts me to make the next one and the next one and the one after that. If I just make a lot of pictures, and this gives me permission to make a lot of pictures, I get better at drawing. So this is a great way to kind of reinforce yourself, not by worrying about the picture, but by how did this connect me with the world around me? Did I notice something about the larkspur that I'd never seen before? Today I did. I learned a larkspur lesson,
Mhm.
and and the world's better because of it. That then motivates you to do the next. This is all a skill that you can learn. There's a big community of people to do this. You can do this on your own. You can do this with family. You can do this. And we're here to be to on that journey with you. I am so delighted that I'm able to share this with the community at the Children in Nature Network. The work that you are doing is so important. All of us need opportunities to get out into this beautiful natural world. I find that when I do it with deliberate attention, in that short time that I'm out in the woods, every moment is supercharged. I get so much more out of the same time. I want to encourage you to try this. And if there's any way we at the Wild Wonder Foundation can support you in your own personal journey or your communities, reach out to us. We're a really, really friendly, funny, goofy bunch of people, and we're doing great things together. And we invite you to join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. This has been amazing. We do have a couple of questions. Are you up for some questions?
Absolutely.
Great. A few folks are asking if you could share about when you started nature journaling and if you would be able to share some examples of your early nature journaling pages.
Let me go grab that. It's in that. Yeah, I started with this sketchbook
Mhm.
a long time ago. My parents were both they were naturey people. My mom was a botanist. My dad was a bird watcher, and we would go romping around and having nature adventures together. My mom organized these botany trips with a friend of hers, and then our family would go out and we'd learn about botany. And on one of these trips, one of my mom's friends showed up and she had a little notebook and she was sketching. I maybe was 9 or 10. And I looked over and was absolutely entranced. And my mom noticed that little ADHD Jack, who's normally just bouncing all over the place, I was that woman's shadow. And everywhere she went, I went and looked. And she'd sit down and she'd sit down next to a flower, and I'd sit down next to her and just watch what she did. And so as the day went on, my mom was going like, okay, there's again, attention is love, right? Mom noticed that. And she the next time we went out, she said, hey honey, there's something in the back of the car for you. You might want to go check it out. And I went, opened up the back of the Plymouth Valiant, and there was this journal, the same kind that Neela Watley had. And there's the same set of pencils, the same kind of drawing tools that she used. And so I started doing that myself. And um, I, you know, that um, if you look at these, um, I was into it. Um, there's some more of my my flower studies.
How old did you say you were when you did this journaling?
I sh is there a date on this? Um, I let me give you a visual on this. Um, and I should to have my own personal story uh intact. I should know exactly when this was. Um, but I don't. But I can show you. Let's see. I'm going to share this. I was a little guy, and um, and that uh, just it opened up my world, and that started this this process. Um, I as I was drawing, um, not was there a date there? Oh, I wish I had dated these. Oh yeah, here's this is kind of fun. Um, this is a picture of me running over. Somebody has found a flower, and I'm running over with my journal to sketch it. And I'll show you this. Um, so this person has found a flower here, and that's me coming in with my sketchbook. And that once I was hooked. I just kept doing it. Um, in elementary school and things, I wasn't a better drawer than my other classmates. I was, but I was more consistent. I kept doing it because I think for me, a big reason I kept making drawings was that I um, I couldn't. I was. It was a way of for me for my mental health. I was really struggling in elementary school, and for me, part of my own process of sort of recalibrating and sort of finding equilibrium after a hard day at school, kind of being beaten down, I would wander through Golden Gate Park or Sutro Forest near my house in San Francisco. And I had a little journal with me, and I would go nature journaling on my own. I didn't sort of have any structure to it, but I would kind of go out there and follow a bird, climb a tree, chase a squirrel, and then take some notes about that. And I put that in my notebook, and that helped me um, find myself and find peace, find connection with the natural world again. And that kept me drawing. So if you just do something on a regular basis, whatever it is that you do, you get better at it. And so I just ended up making a lot of pictures, and that helped.
Great. Love that. One participant asks, I teach nature journaling to children and adults, and they often feel pressured to name and know everything that they see. How can I help them be comfortable with not knowing to focus less on identification and more on discovering, asking questions, and wonder?
I've got a couple of ideas on that. So you're absolutely right. And sometimes there's an interesting thing. When we have the name, our brain goes, "Oh, okay, I've got a convenient label for this." Your brain is super practical, and your brain will take a whole bunch of complexity and chunk it. So okay, your brain can handle about seven different ideas at a time. And one way that it can deal with a little more complexity is by chunking things. So if you have a name for something, this is purple passion fruit. All right. Then you look at it and your brain says, you don't need to worry about all that detail. Just chunk it and let's think about a higher order problem. So sometimes when we get a name or a label for something, we stop looking at that thing. And so I um I write field guides as part of my job, and I really do enjoy things, enjoy looking at things and identifying things. But I do even see in myself sometimes once I've got a name on something, there's part of my brain that goes, okay, cool. Now what's this over here? So we have to fight against that because the name is not the thing. It's just the latest thing that the American Ornithological Union has sort of slapped on that critter, and that will change when somebody else wants to get a PhD. Um, and so um, I'm constantly trying to get myself to find something new in something that I think I know. And so the big challenge is, can you not just find the novel species, but can you find something novel in the familiar ones? Can you look at robins or brewer's blackbirds and notice something about them that you've never seen before? Then that's like ninja level observer skills. One thing that was really kind of has always stuck in my head when I was years ago, I was a naturalist teaching at a place called the Teton Science School. It's in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I would during the summer, I worked with all of these kids, mostly local kids, and some folks would come in from out of state. But one of the things which we did when we were kind of looking at plants is we'd go around and the kids would do a description of a plant. Now, when a scientist encounters a new species, they write a description of it, and it's sketches and details about it. There's a type specimen, and then this becomes the species. But if you write the description for it, you get to name the species. So what we did is we went out without field guides and we um, we made descriptions of all these different plants. And then what I did is ask them to name their plant. So they would name that plant. And then that species, we from that point on, in our all of our adventures, whenever we'd encounter that plant, we would refer to it by the name that the student had given it, which helps us sort of like, what is special about these other names? Well, they are, we've for ease of communication, we've all settled on that this is the lodgepole pine. Um, but really, that's not the thing, and it is as arbitrary as whatever else you might want to call it. So, I remember young Peter Rainier had done the description for the lodgepole pine. So from that point on, it was the Rainier pine. And still, when I see lodgepoles, I look like, oh, there's the Rainier pine. So you can have your students make up their own names. That's a lot of fun to do. Another thing to do, sometimes when I'm going traveling in areas that I'm not familiar with, I will intentionally not bring a field guide with me because then I'm really tempted just to kind of get the name. If I don't have the field guide, um, it really is forcing me to like on that bird, what color were the undertail coverts? I really didn't get to see on that one, and then on the next one, I'm really looking for that. So I primed my brain like where to look, and I found if I have the field guide, I'll go like, what color were the undertail coverts? Page 43. They were blue. Okay, they were blue. But but sometimes not having the book gets me into this sort of zone of like, I really want to see the next one, and then I'm sort of priming my brain to be a super absorbent sponge, a quicker picker upper. Um, as I am out there with the next time I encounter that species. Yeah, but the name is not the thing. But I know that same problem. Um, the Another thing you can do is with something that everybody knows is sort of to give the challenge of how many new observations can you make about this thing. This is something that we think we know, we subjectively think we know it, but we don't. So let's see what happens when we go there. And so, for instance, today looking at these passion fruit flowers, my understanding is much better. But I also am coming away with this a bigger kind of realizing that I have walked past those flowers a jillion times. And subjectively, my brain said, "Oh yeah, you're a botanist. You wrote a field guide. You know what's up there." And then looking at this thing, no, I'm gonna have to tap out on that. or actually not tap out because that's giving up, but I'm admitting that I really don't know. And that is an exciting place to be for a curious person. So can we try to replace our feeling of kind of connection with something is like knowing all the facts about it versus connection with something is really paying attention to it. And um, can I pay deeper attention to all of nature around me? What will that do to my sense of relationship with those things?
Um, Along those lines of knowing and not knowing, when you jot down questions in your journal, do you ever go back and look up the answers or just kind of let those questions lie in the journal?
Yeah. It's a yes and sort of thing. So there are several things. So very often, you start doing this, some of the easy questions like, what is this? What is that? What's the name for this thing? Somebody's there's that information is going to be out there. But you get into deeper questions, and then you're going to do whatever search you do, you're going to realize that information isn't out there because you could be the first person who has ever come up with that question. And if you are wanting to kind of dig deeper, you can through your own direct observations. So, not by doing a literature search, we're going to go old school and look at the thing. All the stuff in books that is written about passion fruits came from people just like us, sitting down on a stump and looking hard at a passion fruit. And so I can answer a bunch of questions that way. We can also use inference to do the same, to learn a lot about things. That being said, for a bunch of the questions, um, it, they will remain a mystery for my whole life for several reasons. One, on a good day, you should be able to ask more questions than you ever should be able to answer. You can come up with many more questions. And if you're thinking that if you have to come up with answers to all of those, then you'll start to feel like that pressure of like, I gotta go home and do all this research. So you start asking fewer questions. If you give yourself permission just to ask a ton of questions, then you will get to the question behind the question behind the question. You'll get to some richer questions. And even if you never go around and try to answer those questions, just being in a state of curiosity is extremely useful. When you're curious, your brain releases dopamine. It's a neurotransmitter that helps you focus, that helps you stay with something longer, that helps you kind of stick in there and play with an experience or a phenomenon. It also radically improves your ability to remember, not just remember details about whatever you're looking at the moment, but about all these other sort of unrelated things that happen to be going on in that moment. Because that neurotransmitter is sloshing around in your electric meat, it is easier for your brain to kind of get things and store them and have stuff stick. So curiosity is useful whether or not you answer the questions. Curiosity is fun whether or not you answer the questions. What we want to do though is train our brain to get really comfortable in that space of not knowing and going, oh, cool, this is a mystery. This is something that I don't know, instead of that questions and things that I don't know are a threat. So if you identify yourself just by your competency in things, sometimes a question can be an existential threat. It's unknown. It's something that I don't know, as opposed to like, oh, goody, I found another thing that I don't know, and another, and another. And you know what? That makes me think of 10 more things that I don't know. And being comfortable in that space is really, really fun and beautiful. So you don't have to answer your questions. You can answer some of them. You will not be able to answer all the questions, even if you wanted to. Um, and but whether or not they get answered, the questions are useful and a beautiful part of our process of being alive, being curious. Certainty is one of the category killers in our epistemology. So, as we're trying to make sense of the world and sort of make meaning out of things, our sense of certainty has us just do a full stop on investigations on things. So another thing, part of my practice is to notice where I feel that certainty and to try to, as much as I can, to push myself to go, oh, really? What's the strength of your evidence for that, Mr. Laws? Right? And to go there. It's fun. There's mysteries everywhere, and it's something that I really love about this process of looking at the world.
Great, thanks. I wish that we could stay and chat forever, but unfortunately, our time together is coming to an end. But I want to thank you so much, Jack, for sharing your time and skills with us today, as well as your authenticity and your process. It's been so amazing and magical to be a part of that. We also at the Children in Nature Network appreciate all that you do and all that the Wild Wonder Foundation does to encourage nature connection and conservation. We're truly grateful for your leadership and contributions to the nature journaling movement as well. Just a reminder that a recording will be sent out to all registered event attendees in about 2 weeks. And it will also be available on our website around that time as well. And just wanted to let everyone know that the Children in Nature Network's Vitamin N Challenge kicks off on July 1st. You can learn more on our website. Laura just dropped a link in the chat. Nature journaling is a great tool to incorporate into your own vitamin N challenge. Um, wanted to thank you all for attending. The Children in Nature Network is able to offer events like this free of charge because of the generosity of our members and donors who want to support the Children in Nature movement. We'd be grateful if you'd consider joining as a member at childreninnature.org/support. I wish you all a great nature-filled weekend and hope you all get a chance to get outside or grab a piece of fruit from the kitchen and spend some time nature journaling this weekend.